The settlement looks like it's been carved from desperation. Prefab units clinging to the hillside, solar panels tilted toward a sun that barely cuts through the perpetual haze. Beyond the perimeter fence, the exclusion barrens stretch for kilometers, a wasteland of twisted vegetation and air that shimmers with something that isn't quite heat. Dr. Cade Chin briefs us in a room that smells like recycled air and instant coffee. The energy anomaly we're calling the drift causes progressive neurological and thermoregulatory dysfunction. Symptoms begin with disorientation, proceed to hypothermia regardless of ambient temperature, and culminate in... He pauses. Well, no one survives stage 3. I'm taking notes when she walks in. Lyra moves like someone who's forgotten how to hurry, her steps deliberate and economical. She's wrapped in layers despite the moderate temperature, a thermal shirt under a worn canvas jacket, her dark hair pulled back in a braid that's coming loose. When Cade introduces her as our cultural liaison, she doesn't offer her hand. The indigenous people here have developed certain adaptations, Cade explains, choosing his words carefully. Lyra has agreed to teach you the protocols that allow extended safe operation in the affected zones. She finally looks at me, and her eyes are an unsettling shade of amber. You're the geologist? Yeah, Sarah Vega. Good. We leave in an hour. She turns to Cade. Just her. Groups diffuse the effect. Day 3. The research station Lyra takes me to is barely that. A reinforced shelter half buried in the hillside. Its walls lined with makeshift insulation and data equipment that looks salvaged from 3 different decades. But it's positioned at the edge of a drift concentration zone, which makes it perfect for my soil composition studies, and absolutely terrible for every human instinct that says get away from the dangerous thing. You're already feeling it, Lyra says on our second night. It's not a question. She's right. My hands won't stop shaking, even though I'm wearing 2 layers of thermals. The cold seems to originate from inside my bones, spreading outward. It's not actually cold, she continues, watching me from where she's organizing equipment. Your nervous system is misfiring, interpreting the drift as a thermal threat. Great. So I'm just imagining hypothermia. No. She crosses to me, and for the first time I notice how steady she is, how her hands don't shake at all. Your body is responding to a real threat, just not the one it thinks. She kneels in front of where I'm sitting, her expression clinical. I'm going to touch you now. It's going to feel invasive. But if you want to work out here, you need to learn this. Before I can respond, she's moved into my space, turning me and pulling my back against her chest, her arms wrapping around my ribs. My first instinct is to pull away. This is a colleague, practically a stranger. This is wildly inappropriate. But her grip is firm without being restraining. Breathe, she says against my shoulder. Your cortisol is spiking. That makes it worse. The warmth of her body against mine should be neutral, meaningless. Body heat is body heat. But within minutes, the shaking stops. The cold recedes like a tide pulling back from shore. What is this? I ask. Old knowledge. Skin contact regulates more than temperature. Heartbeat, stress hormones, neural firing patterns. The drift attacks isolation. Connection disrupts its frequency. So you're, what, a human antidote? I feel her breath hitch, something almost like a laugh. We're all antidotes to each other, if we allow it. She holds me for 20 minutes, times it on her watch. When she releases me, the cold doesn't return immediately, but I can feel it waiting at the edges, patient. We'll need to do this every 4 to 6 hours, she says, returning to her equipment as if she hadn't just held me like a lover. More frequently if you're working in high concentration areas. Day 5. The awkwardness should be unbearable. Every 4 to 6 hours, we stop whatever we're doing, and Lyra holds me. Sometimes I'm the one being held. Sometimes, when her own exposure symptoms flare, she lets me hold her. But I'm starting to understand the rhythm of it. The way her breathing changes when the drift is particularly strong. How she knows exactly when I need the protocol before I do. Some sixth sense developed over months of solitary survival out here. How long have you been doing this alone? I asked during an evening session. We're sitting on the floor near the heating unit, my back against her chest, her chin resting on my shoulder. 16 months. The number hits me like a physical blow. Lyra, the exposure limits for solo researchers are 6 months maximum. For your people. Her voice is quiet. I'm different. My grandmother survived in the deep barrens for 3 years before the government found her settlement. She taught me adaptations. But even with the protocols alone, I twist to look at her. Who held you? Her expression closes off. I managed. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She releases me, stands abruptly. Your readings are stable. Get some sleep. We have a full survey run tomorrow. I watch her retreat to her workstation, and for the first time I understand what the true cost of her isolation has been. She's forgotten how to let someone else share the burden. That night, I lie awake in my bunk, listening to her move quietly around the shelter. And I make a decision. If she's teaching me how to survive the drift, maybe I can teach her something too. How to stop surviving alone. The morning starts with routine. I collect soil samples from the eastern ridge while Lyra monitors drift levels from the shelter. But when I return, I find her sitting at the monitoring station, staring at the readouts with an expression I can't quite decipher. Problem? I ask, setting down my sample containers. The concentrations are increasing, faster than normal. She pulls up a graph showing spikes over the past 48 hours. Something's disturbing the equilibrium. Natural fluctuation? Maybe. Or she zooms out on the map, showing a wider area. There have been unauthorized energy signatures near the southern perimeter. Could be surveyors? Prospectors? The way she says it makes my stomach tighten. That's bad. Depends on who it is and what they want. She stands, moves to check our supply inventory. We should be prepared to relocate if necessary. But she doesn't sound convinced we'd actually leave. Day 8. The protocol sessions are becoming something else. I notice it in small ways, how Lyra's hands linger a moment longer when she releases me. How our conversations during the sessions have shifted from clinical discussions to actual talks about her grandmother's stories, about my reasons for becoming a geologist, about the things we left behind to come to this dying place. Why did you really volunteer for this assignment? She asks one afternoon. We're in our usual position, her arms around me, my head resting back against her shoulder. I consider lying, giving her the professional answer about career advancement and important research. But something about the way she holds me, steady, patient, undemanding, makes me tell the truth. I was engaged. 2 years. He wanted me to take a position at a corporate lab. Safe, profitable, completely soul-destroying. I traced patterns on her forearm absently. I said no. He said I was choosing rocks over a future. I said maybe rocks were more reliable than people who gave ultimatums. Were they? More reliable? The rocks? Absolutely. They don't care if you love them back. I feel her laugh, a silent shake of her shoulders. Is that why you're here? Hiding from attachment? Maybe I was. Past tense. The admission surprises me. What about you? You could have left months ago. Why stay? Her arms tighten fractionally. Someone has to remember. My people. This place. Your government documented us like we were data points. Cultural artifacts to be preserved in reports. But I'm not an artifact. This isn't history. It's happening now. And if I leave, who witnesses it? I'm witnessing it, I say quietly. You're not alone anymore. She doesn't respond, but her heartbeat against my spine quickens, and her breathing shifts into something unsteady. We stay like that long past the required 20 minutes, neither of us willing to be the first to let go. Day 10, I wake in the middle of the night to find the shelter's temperature has dropped dangerously. The heating unit is malfunctioning, and outside, the drift readings are spiking, the highest I've seen. Lyra is already awake, working to repair the heater, but I can see she's affected. Her hands shake as she handles the tools, and there's a fine tremor running through her whole body. Lyra, almost got it, she mutters, but her words are slurring slightly. Advanced exposure symptoms. I make a decision. I cross to her, pull the tools from her hands, and drag her toward her bunk. She tries to protest, but I'm stronger than she expects. Protocol, I say firmly, climbing into the narrow bed and pulling her against me, wrapping us both in every blanket we have. You're going into thermal shock. Let me help. Sarah, I need a fix. You need to not die. The heater can wait 20 minutes. She finally stops fighting, lets herself collapse against me. I hold her the way she's held me a dozen times, and I'm shocked by how cold she is, how violently she's shaking. Talk to me, I say against her hair. Stay present. Tell me about your grandmother. She She used to say the drift wasn't a sickness. It was the world asking a question. Her voice is barely a whisper. Are you worth saving? Will you save each other? And? And if the answer was yes, the warmth would come. I hold her tighter, pour every ounce of heat I have into the embrace. And slowly, so slowly, the shaking subsides. Her breathing evens out. The dangerous edge recedes. When she's finally stable, she doesn't pull away. Instead, she turns in my arms, and in the darkness, I feel her forehead press against mine. Thank you, she breathes. You've saved me a dozen times. I'm just returning the favor. No. Her hand finds mine under the blankets, fingers threading through fingers. You're doing something different. You're staying. The heater is still broken. The drift is still deadly. We should be problem-solving, preparing, protecting ourselves. Instead, we fall asleep like that, tangled together in the narrow bunk, choosing connection over caution. Day 12. Morning brings the sound of engines, heavy vehicles approaching from the south. Lyra is up instantly, checking the perimeter sensors, and her expression goes hard when she sees the readings. Garrett. Who? She's already pulling on her jacket, checking the charge on the shelter's defense grid. Prospector. Claims the barrens are full of rare earth deposits being suppressed by government restrictions. He's tried to establish operations here before. This is protected research land. Sarah. She turns to me, and there's something fierce in her amber eyes. Out here, law is whatever you can enforce. And Garrett has enforcement. 3 heavy rovers pull up outside the perimeter, modified for Barron's operations, carrying people who look more like mercenaries than miners. Their leader steps out, tall, weathered, the kind of swagger that comes from never being told no. Miss Lyra, he calls out cheerfully. Still playing scientist? Lyra doesn't open the shelter door. She responds through the comm system. Still respecting boundaries, Garrett. This is government research land. Leave. See, that's where things have changed. He produces a tablet, holds it up to show official-looking documents. New territorial reassessment. This sector's been reclassified as unclaimed frontier. First come, first served, and I'm filing claim. Those are forgeries. Prove it. His grin widens. While you're at it, you might want to pack up. We're setting up mining operations. It's going to get loud, and you know how the drift responds to seismic disturbance. He's not wrong. Large-scale operations could destabilize the entire zone, make it completely uninhabitable. You'll kill yourself and everyone with you, Lyra says. That's my risk to take. You've got 72 hours to clear out. Professional courtesy. He tips an imaginary hat. Clock's ticking, ladies. The rovers pull away, heading to a position 100 meters south, close enough to establish presence. Close enough to make good on the threat. When they're gone, Lyra finally opens the door, stands looking out at the barrens. I join her, and for a long moment, neither of us speaks. We need to call base camp, I say finally. Get legal involved. Prove the documents are fake. It won't matter. Her voice is hollow. Even if they're fake, by the time the government sorts it out, Garrett will have extracted what he wants and disappeared. And this place? She gestures at the wilderness around us. This place will be destroyed. So what do we do? She looks at me, and there's something desperate in her expression. I don't know. But I know I can't leave. Not yet. This is all that's left of my people's legacy. If I abandon it, then we don't abandon it. The words come out before I can think them through. We stay. We document everything. And we make it cost him so much in delays and complications that it's not worth it. Sarah, that's survival. I finish. Isn't that what you've been teaching me? How to survive the impossible? She searches my face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. When she doesn't find it, something in her expression cracks open. This is going to get dangerous. I know. You could leave. Should leave. This isn't your fight. I take her hand, lace our fingers together. Isn't it? You said the drift asks a question. Will you save each other? I'm answering. For the first time since I met her, Lyra smiles. Really smiles. Wide and genuine and devastating. Then we'd better get to work. Garrett's operation starts small. Survey equipment, test drills, geological mapping. But each day brings more people, more machinery, more disturbance. And with each disturbance, the drift grows worse. The monitoring equipment tells the story in sharp data spikes, concentration levels climbing, coherence patterns destabilizing. My symptoms return with a vengeance. The phantom cold, the disorientation, and now a new one. Auditory hallucinations, a low humming that seems to vibrate in my bones. Lyra and I increase the protocol frequency. Every 4 hours becomes every 3. Every 3 becomes every 2. This isn't sustainable, I say during a midnight session. We're both exhausted, but the drift is so strong that neither of us can sleep without the other nearby. We're barely functional. I know. She's holding me from behind, her arms wrapped tight around my ribs, her face pressed between my shoulder blades. But if we leave, he wins. The barrens become a mine site, and everything my people learned, everything they preserved, it gets erased. And if we stay and die, then we die bearing witness. Maybe that means something. Lyra, I'm not being dramatic. Her voice is muffled against my back. I'm being realistic. The exposure levels are approaching lethal range, even with the protocols, even with both of us. I twist in her arms, force her to look at me. Then we change the equation. We get help. From who? Base camp is 3 days away by ground vehicle, and we've already sent distress calls. Legal channels take weeks. Not legal channels, public ones. I grab my tablet, pull up our research documentation. We've been recording everything, right? The indigenous knowledge, the protocols, the drift data. What if we publish it? All of it. Open access. Make this place too visible to quietly destroy. Her eyes widen. The government will shut us down for releasing classified research. Let them try. By the time they do, it'll be everywhere. Academic networks, news outlets, environmental groups. Garrett can't mind what the whole world is watching. It's risky. It could end both our careers. But the alternative is watching Lyra slowly kill herself trying to protect this place alone. Do it, she says finally. But Sarah, once we do this, there's no going back. We'll have declared war. Good. I start compiling the files. I'm tired of surrendering territory. Day 15. The publication goes live at dawn. Within hours, it's everywhere. Scientific forums, environmental blogs, news sites hungry for a story about indigenous knowledge and corporate exploitation. Our inbox explodes with messages, support, criticism, interview requests, academic citations. Garrett shows up at noon, and he's not cheerful anymore. You've made a very stupid mistake, he says through the comm system. His face on the screen is flushed with anger. Interfering with legitimate business operations. Documenting our research, Lyra corrects calmly. Which is our right and our responsibility as scientists. You've painted a target on your backs. Do you understand that? My investors don't like delays. They especially don't like publicity. Then perhaps they should invest in legal operations, I say. He leans closer to the camera. You think going viral protects you? You're 3 days from support, in a zone that kills people for fun. Accidents happen out here, Dr. Vega. Tragic, unavoidable accidents. The connection cuts. Lyra and I look at each other. He's not bluffing, she says quietly. I know. My hands are shaking, but not from the drift. From adrenaline. From fear. Can we defend the shelter? For a while. It's built to withstand drift storms, which means it's fairly robust. But if they really want us out... She doesn't finish the sentence. That night, we don't sleep. We take turns on watch, monitoring the perimeter sensors, tracking Garrett's people as they move around their camp. And when we're not on watch, we hold each other. Not on a schedule, not for therapy, but because the physical contact is the only thing that feels real anymore. I'm sorry, Lyra whispers during one of these moments. We're on her bunk, facing each other in the darkness, foreheads touching. I'm sorry I brought you into this. You didn't. I chose. I find her hand, bring it to my chest, let her feel my heartbeat. And I'd choose it again. All of it. Even knowing it might end badly. Especially knowing that. I close the small distance between us and kiss her. Soft, brief, a question more than a statement. She answers by pulling me closer, deepening the kiss, and for a few precious minutes, The drift and Garrett and the impossible situation all fade away. There's only warmth and connection and the overwhelming rightness of choosing each other in the face of everything trying to tear us apart. When we finally break apart, her eyes are bright in the darkness. The protocol never mentioned this part, she says, almost smiling. Maybe it should have. Day 17. The attack comes at 3 a.m. Not violence. Garrett's too smart for that with the world watching. Instead, his people fire up the heavy drilling equipment all at once, creating a seismic disturbance that sends drift readings into chaos. The effect is immediate and devastating. The shelter systems overload trying to compensate. Alarms shriek. My vision doubles, triples. The cold hits like a physical force, driving me to my knees. Lyra is there instantly, pulling me into her arms, but I can feel her shaking too. The drift is too strong. It's overwhelming our ability to regulate, even together. Sarah. Her voice sounds distant, distorted. Sarah, stay with me. But I'm falling into the cold, into the humming, into the void that the drift becomes when it wins. Somewhere far away, I feel Lyra's arms around me. I hear her voice, desperate now, speaking words in a language I don't understand. Her grandmother's language, the old language of the Barons. And then, impossibly, the warmth comes. Not from Lyra, from everywhere and nowhere. A sensation like being wrapped in sunlight, like every moment of human connection I've ever experienced concentrated into a single point of consciousness. The drift doesn't retreat, but it shifts, changes frequency, becomes something I can exist alongside rather than something trying to erase me. When my vision clears, Lyra is staring at me with wonder and fear. What did you just do? She asks. Nothing. That was you. The words you said. No. She's examining me like I'm an unfamiliar piece of equipment. Your readings. Sarah, you adapted. Your neural patterns synchronized with the drift instead of fighting it. Is that possible? For my people, yes. For outsiders. She trails off. I've never seen it happen this fast. Usually it takes years, generations. I'm still trying to process this when the comm system crackles to life. Impressive light show, Garrett's voice. But it doesn't change anything. You've got 48 hours. After that, we're coming in to clear the site, manually if necessary. The connection cuts again. Lyra helps me to my feet, but I can see her mind is racing. The publication bought us time, but not enough. If they remove us by force, it'll look like exactly what it is, I finish. But we'll still be removed, and probably arrested for trespassing. So we need a better play. What if we don't play at all? The idea is forming even as I speak. What if we invite the world in? Live documentation, real-time streaming. Make this place impossible to touch without everyone watching. Lyra's expression shifts from despair to something like hope. We need satellite access, bandwidth. I have research credentials, emergency uplink for data transmission. I'm already moving toward the communication array. If we route it through the academic networks, piggyback on the existing authorization, they'll shut us down eventually. Eventually isn't now. And every hour we keep this visible is an hour they can't disappear us. We work through the night, rigging the transmission system, setting up cameras, preparing to turn our survival into a performance. It feels desperate and fragile and possibly brilliant. At dawn, we go live. This is Dr. Sarah Vega and Lyra of the Barron's Heritage Research Station, I say to the camera. We're documenting the conflict between indigenous preservation and corporate exploitation in real time. What you're about to see is the true cost of progress without permission. Somewhere in the distance, Garrett's drills resume their assault on the land. And around the world, people start watching. The live stream changes everything. Within 12 hours, we have 50,000 viewers. Within 24, major news networks are picking up the feed. Environmental organizations, indigenous rights groups, academic institutions, they all amplify the signal. Garrett's operation, intended to happen in obscurity, is now one of the most watched locations on the planet. And he's furious about it. You're making this personal, he says during his daily harassment call. His face fills our screen, red-faced and barely controlled. I've been patient, professional, but you're crossing lines. We're documenting research, Lyra responds. her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in her face. We've been maintaining the stream for 3 days straight, narrating the drift readings, explaining the protocols, showing the world exactly what his operation is destroying. If that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps examine why. My investors want results. They're tired of delays. This ends tomorrow, one way or another. The connection cuts. Our audience, now hovering around 200,000 concurrent viewers, explodes with commentary, offers of legal help, threats of protests, a few conspiracy theories, but mostly people simply watching, witnessing, refusing to look away. We can't keep this up much longer, I tell Lyra during a rare off-camera moment. We're both running on maybe 4 hours of sleep in the past 72 hours, maintained only by constant protocol sessions and increasingly dangerous exposure levels. The drift is getting worse, and we're dying slowly instead of quickly? She laughs, but there's no humor in it. I know. Sarah, I know. But what's the alternative? Give up? Let them win? No. But maybe. I pull up the data we've been collecting. Look at this. Your grandmother's language. The words you spoke during the worst spike. My neural patterns changed. What if we can replicate that? Teach it? It took my people generations to develop. But we have something they didn't. Real-time biometric monitoring. Machine learning. We can map the exact changes, create a protocol anyone can learn. I'm talking faster now, the exhaustion giving way to manic energy. We could make the barrens accessible, not just survivable, but habitable. That's the opposite of preservation. That's opening the gates. No, it's changing the gates. Right now, this place is exploitable because only people like Garrett have the resources to operate here. But if anyone can survive the drift, if the protocols are democratized, I meet her eyes. Then it's not a wasteland. It's a frontier. And frontiers have protections, laws, oversight. She stares at me for a long moment, then slowly starts to smile. You want to save this place by making it impossible to keep people out. Exactly. That's either brilliant or insane. Can it be both? Day 20. We spend the next 2 days developing what we start calling the neural synchronization protocol. It's part meditation, part biofeedback, part linguistic pattern recognition. We document every step, publish the preliminary findings in real time, invite other researchers to verify and expand. The response is overwhelming. Scientists from around the world start replicating our results. Medical researchers see applications for trauma therapy. Linguists discover new connections between speech patterns and neural plasticity. What started as a desperate attempt to survive becomes something larger, a fundamental shift in how humans might adapt to hostile environments. And through it all, Lyra and I hold each other. The original protocol, the one her grandmother taught, becomes inseparable from the new techniques we're developing. Our bodies learn to anticipate each other's needs. Our breathing synchronizes without conscious thought. The boundary between where I end and she begins starts to blur. Is this still professional? I ask one evening when we're supposed to be calibrating equipment but instead are tangled together on her bunk, my head on her chest, listening to her heartbeat. Was it ever? She runs her fingers through my hair absently. I think we stopped being professional the first time I held you and felt relief instead of just duty. When was that? Day 3. When you fell asleep in my arms and I realized I'd been lonely for so long, I'd forgotten what the opposite felt like. I tilt my head to look up at her. And now? Now I'm terrified. Her voice cracks. Because in 4 days or 4 months, this ends. You go back to your world, I go back to mine, and this. She gestures at the space between us. This temporary thing becomes a memory. What if it doesn't have to be temporary? Sarah, I'm serious. What if we don't go back to our separate worlds? What if we build something new? Here or somewhere else or wherever, but together. She cups my face, and her eyes are bright with unshed tears. You don't know what you're saying. You're exhausted, traumatized, biochemically bonded through repeated exposure to crisis. In 6 months, when your brain chemistry normalizes, I'll still want this. I sit up, force her to really see me. I'll still want you. Not because of the drift or the protocols or the adrenaline. Because you taught me that survival isn't about enduring alone. It's about finding someone worth surviving with. That's the drift talking. No, I kiss her, fierce and certain. That's me talking. The drift just made me brave enough to say it. She kisses me back, and this time, when we fall into each other, it's not about protocol or therapy or survival. It's about choice. We choose this. We choose each other. Day 22. Garrett makes his move at dawn. His people surround the shelter, not with weapons, but with mining equipment. Heavy machinery designed to tear through rock. The implicit threat is clear: leave or be buried. Our livestream audience, now over 1 million strong, watches in real time. Last chance, Garrett says through the comm. I've got lawyers saying this becomes self-defense if you don't evacuate. You're trespassing on my claim. Your claim is fraudulent, Lyra responds. She's standing at the comm station, her hand in mine, and she looks exhausted, but unbroken. And the world is watching you threaten scientists conducting legal research. The world will forget in a week, but you'll still be dead if that shelter comes down. He's probably right about the world. Public attention is fickle, but he's wrong about us. Here's what's going to happen, I say, stepping up to the camera. I'm speaking to Garrett, but also to the 1 million people watching. We're going to stay. We're going to continue documenting. And if your equipment touches this shelter, if anything happens to us, it won't be an accident. It'll be murder. And every person watching will know exactly who to blame. You think that scares me? I think your investors scare easily, and I think your permits won't survive the investigation that follows a public execution. For a long moment, there's silence. Then Garrett's face twists into something ugly. You've made your choice. Live with the consequences. The machines start up. The ground begins to shake. Drift readings spike to levels we've never seen. And Lyra pulls me close, wraps her arms around me, and whispers her grandmother's words against my skin. The warmth comes. Not just for us, for everyone watching. Through the biometric data streaming live, people around the world feel it, the neural synchronization, the shift in consciousness that happens when humans choose connection over isolation, even in the face of destruction. It's not magic. It's not supernatural. It's just biology, psychology, and the fundamental human capacity for adaptation when given the right conditions and the right companion. But it's enough. The machines stop. On the comm screen, Garrett's face is pale. What did you just do? Change the frequency, Lyra says quietly. You can't mine what you can't measure, and you can't measure what you're not willing to understand. Behind him, his crew is backing away from their equipment. Some are sitting down, looking dazed. Others are staring at their hands like they're seeing them for the first time. They've all felt it. The synchronization, the shift. And they're not willing to destroy it anymore. The standoff ends not with violence, but with bureaucracy. Within hours of our synchronization event being broadcast worldwide, government officials descend on the site, real ones this time, with actual authority and no patience for Garrett's forged permits. His investors, spooked by the public attention and the unexplainable mass event involving their crew, pull funding. By sunset of day 23, his operation is being dismantled. But the government isn't our ally either. They arrive with their own agenda: containment, control, classification. This research is now under federal oversight, Director Marsh tells us. She's a severe woman in a severe suit, completely out of place in the Barrens. The synchronization protocol you've developed has significant security implications. It needs to be properly studied, regulated. Weaponized? Lyra interrupts. Marsh doesn't flinch. Protected. The data you've released is incomplete, dangerous in the wrong hands. As opposed to the right hands? I'm exhausted, running on fumes and stubbornness. The hands that reclassified this land to let Garrett mine it? Those hands? Dr. Vega. No. I stand, and Lyra stands with me, our fingers interlaced. You want to classify this? Fine. But Lyra and I are the primary researchers. We continue the work, here, with full autonomy. Or we release everything we've held back and let the world figure it out without you. It's a bluff, mostly. But Marsh doesn't know what we've held back, and the global attention means she can't simply disappear us. She's silent for a long time then. You'd be working under government contract, subject to oversight, required to submit findings for review before publication. With Lyra as co-lead, I counter. Full recognition, full compensation, and this site designated as permanent research preserve, not exploitable frontier. That's not my authority to grant. Then find someone whose authority it is. Another silence. Then, impossibly, Marsh smiles. You remind me of me, 20 years ago, before I learned to compromise. Did compromising make you happier? No, but it kept me alive. She pulls out a tablet, begins drafting terms. I'll see what I can do. But Dr. Vega, Ms. Lyra, understand that what you've discovered changes things. The synchronization protocol, the neural adaptation, the implications for human consciousness and connection. This is bigger than preserving one site. This is about reshaping how humans interact with hostile environments everywhere. We know, Lyra says quietly. That's why it can't be locked away. My grandmother's knowledge wasn't meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be shared when the time was right. And you think the time is right? I think the time is unavoidable. We've already started something we can't stop. Now we just decide whether it unfolds with wisdom or chaos. Marsh looks between us, two exhausted women who somehow stood against corporate greed and government oversight and the literal physics of a hostile environment, and something in her expression softens. I'll make the calls. You two get some rest. You look half dead. Only half? I manage a weak smile. I must be improving. Day 28. The bureaucratic machinery grinds slowly, but it does grind. Within a week, we have provisional approval. The site becomes the Barron's Heritage Research Station, official and protected. Lyra and I are named co-directors. Funding arrives, proper equipment, and most importantly, time. Time to do the research right. Time to document not just the protocols, but their history, their context, their meaning. Time to figure out what we are to each other when we're not just surviving. Do you think it's real? I ask one evening. We're in the newly arrived residential module, an actual bed, actual privacy, luxuries we've barely had time to appreciate. What we feel. Or is it just Stockholm Syndrome meets biochemical dependency? Lyra is quiet for a long time, her fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. I've been thinking about that. My grandmother used to say that asking if love is real is like asking if fire is real. Fire is a chemical reaction. Love is a neurological one. But knowing the mechanism doesn't make the warmth less true. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. She shifts to look at me properly. Sarah, the drift brought us together. The protocols created intimacy. But every day since, we've chosen to stay. That's not dependency. That's decision. And if the drift disappeared tomorrow? If we didn't need the protocols anymore? Then I'd still choose you. Not because I need you to survive, but because surviving without you feels like missing a limb. She cups my face. But I need to know, do you choose this? Really choose it? Not because you're noble or committed to the research, but because you want me specifically, complications and all? I don't answer with words. Instead, I pull her close and kiss her with all the certainty I've been too afraid to fully embrace until now. When we break apart, she's smiling. That rare, genuine smile that still takes my breath away. I guess that's an answer too. 3 months later. The research station has transformed. We have a full team now. Scientists, linguists, cultural historians, all working to understand and document the synchronization protocols. Lyra teaches her grandmother's language to eager students. I analyze the geological factors that create drift conditions. Together, we're building something that honors the past while pointing toward the future. But the work is secondary to the partnership. We've learned each other's rhythms without the crisis forcing us together. How Lyra needs silence in the mornings. How I process stress by organizing things. The way we fit together on the small couch in our quarters, reading or working or just being. The protocols are still necessary. The drift hasn't disappeared and likely never will. But they've evolved. What started as clinical survival technique has become intimate ritual, a language of touch and trust that goes beyond words. Do you ever regret it? Lyra asks one evening. We're watching the sunset over the barrens, that strange shimmer of drift energy making the sky look like it's breathing. Staying. Choosing this instead of a normal career, normal life. I think about my old life, the corporate lab offer, the safe choices, the path that made sense on paper. Then I think about what I have now, groundbreaking research, purpose, and the woman beside me. No, I say simply. Normal is overrated. This is better. Even though it's hard? Especially because it's hard. The drift taught me something. The things worth having are the things you have to fight for, not fight against. Fight for. There's a difference. She leans her head on my shoulder, and I wrap my arm around her. Your grandmother would have liked you. Would she have approved of us? Absolutely. She believed connection was the highest form of survival. Not just surviving in spite of isolation, but transforming isolation into intimacy. Lyra turns to look at me. That's what we did, isn't it? Took the loneliest, most hostile environment imaginable and found each other in it. Found each other and chose to stay, I correct. That's the important part. Epilogue. 1 year later. The warmth protocol has become standard training for anyone working in high-drift environments. The synchronization techniques are being adapted for trauma therapy, for isolated communities, for long-duration space missions. What started as one woman's indigenous knowledge and another woman's desperate science has reshaped how humanity thinks about connection and survival. But for Lyra and me, it remains personal. We're in the field, conducting a survey of a newly accessible region. The drift here is particularly strong, but we move through it with practiced ease. Our neural patterns have synchronized so thoroughly that we often know what the other is thinking before words are necessary. Contact in 5 minutes, Lyra says, checking her watch. I nod, already feeling the familiar pull toward her. We find a sheltered spot, and she pulls me into her arms with the ease of long practice. Remember when this was awkward? I murmur against her shoulder. No, I've deleted that memory to preserve my dignity. I laugh and feel her smile against my hair. The protocols have changed. We're not just holding each other for survival anymore. We're holding each other because it's home. Because in a world full of isolation and uncertainty, we've created something certain. This connection, this choice, this love that grew from the spaces between survival and surrender. Are you happy? Lyra asks quietly. I pull back enough to look at her. This woman who taught me that strength isn't about enduring alone, who showed me that vulnerability and courage are the same thing, who chose to trust me when trust was the most dangerous thing she could offer. Yes, I say. Are you? She kisses me instead of answering, and in that kiss is everything. All the fear we've overcome, all the boundaries we've crossed, all the impossible moments we've survived together. When we finally separate, the drift readings have stabilized. Our bodies have done what they've learned to do: regulate, synchronize, protect each other from the hostile world. But we don't let go. Even though the protocol is complete, even though we're safe, we stay tangled together. Because some forms of holding on save lives. And some forms of holding on are just love. We've learned the difference. And we've learned that sometimes, if you're very lucky, they're the same thing.